And I think a lot of times the other reason people don't have difficult conversations is that they don't know how. And even in the sense of they don't know how to be informed. And they're even maybe in some circumstances not even capable of the level of a deep conversation, and that scares them.
Or in my instance, like they may not be able to control themselves.
Yeah.
Anxiety, whatever, emotionally. And for me, it's anxiety. And then my anxiety just clouds over everything. Having a one-on-one conversation with someone gives me a lot of anxiety. So
Sure.
So I mean, you can't get over that.
That fear.
Yes,
Yeah.
of just having a conversation.
Well, and it's just also the idea, too, that you can't even get past, have you ever talked to somebody really, really smart? And when you talk to somebody really smart who knows something really well, that a lot of times you're like,
I can't even keep up with this conversation.
I'm trying. I'm really trying, but I can't.
Everybody's looking at you, Matt.
You're looking at the guy that fumbled the entire first part of this show.
Actually,
and couldn't even get his words out of his mouth, and you're looking at me as the smart one. We're all in trouble.
Well, I'm just saying that there have been times when I'm like, I got to catch up with that one. So.
I try to be relatable, but I'm only smart in some things. I mean, like when you have conversations about things with people that are their specialty.
Yes, I know.
You're like, man, I'd really like to follow you, but I feel really dumb right now, so I'm just going to nod my head and go, yeah, I think I agree with you, but I have no idea. And if you have an insecurity about that, that can make you shy away and like, you're just being intellectual, and I don't like that. And I mean, you're just thinking this to death.
Ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, sometimes that is the case. Or a certain level of knowledge is bliss. Like, this is as far as I care to know.
There are some things I do feel that way about. Like, I don't want to know any more about it. I'm happy with what I've got right here. Not a lot of things, but there are some things that I'm like that.
Yeah, it's like, you may know something I don't know, but I really don't have the capacity to learn more right now. And so I'm just going to have to stick with what I know. But I'll hold on to that idea for maybe later when I have more time to study it. But I can't get into a deep conversation. But that's what but here's what we've done. Even as a country, we've demonized being intellectual in that sense. Like, being too knowledgeable is a problem. And because we can't keep up with the conversation with some people that are too knowledgeable, or anything else, we just demonize it. And like, that's a bad thing.
Oh, hey, this made a little thought bubble pop up in my head. But like, okay, so these difficult conversations, a lot of times we're not having them too, because it takes time to have difficult conversations. Yes. You have to dig deep. And we're in this culture of like memes and having these little like blips that like are catchy little like catchphrases.
Facebook
that, like,
arguments too. Yes.
Yeah, and they trigger reactions, right? These little catchy things. They trigger immediate responses out of us. And having those difficult conversations requires us to like not react immediately. We have to go deeper into what all of the ins and outs are and like the different perspectives. And it's not so cut and dry and black and white, but our culture is promoting us to look in these black and white terms, this side or that side. And it's so much easier to boil things down into a little sound bite that doesn't ever get to the root of what something really is.
Yeah, and I'm like, we've been researching this, like the politics of mental health and these things like that. And when you actually have to get into like the facts things, when you get into the facts, the things that you have to read, blah, 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 blah.
It's difficult.
I mean, it's really hard.
It's difficult to be informed.
And it is. And so, like, to have these things that you have to read and be like, oh, my God.
And now you have to wade through false information.
Yeah, and that's what I was fixing to say. And they're not the first thing that pops up. You got to go through all the... Like, you cannot even look for a news source for facts anymore. I mean, I know everybody knows that. But you have to go down and you have to find, like, medical journals to get your facts from. Like, seriously, like legit studies and things like that. And it's so hard. And people are like, oh, well, the facts are all out there. Yes, but I mean,
good luck finding
There's
them.
Also a lot of things that aren't facts.
Exactly. There's a lot of stuff piled on top of that to trick you.
And there's a lot of things that are just facts for now because it's the best we know. And so that's another thing that makes a conversation difficult is going into it, being willing to understand that your position is probably not that accurate. It's somewhat it's definitely valuable and it's valid, but it doesn't mean it's accurate. Right. You're just doing the best you are with what you got, and it's okay, and it's actually encouraged to go into a conversation knowing you may not be right.
And to say, I don't know. Let me research that more. Or I don't know. Let's ask somebody who does.
Yeah, or share
Because-
something with me that makes you believe what you believe. I want to try to understand it better. So,
Or at least understand what you believe, whether I believe it or not.
sure, even if we're simply talking about perspectives, one of the primary things that we'll be teaching in this series is how to look at something from someone else's perspective. Because if you want to be influential, one of the best things you can possibly do is understand where somebody's coming from. Most people will be willing to compromise with you if you can at least understand where they're coming from. And so that's
And show that you are.
yes.
One of my tips that I had put in my comic is to relay what they're saying to you back to them to show that you are listening and
it helps-
retaining, and then have them do the same about what you're saying.
Exactly. It makes them feel validated, but it also helps you when you're doing that to
Retain the information.
retain the information and make sure that you're listening to understand and not just sitting there like thinking about what you're going to say next and listening to reply.
Yes. So that's definitely a thing that can make a
react.
conversation difficult, is being willing to separate from your own desired outcome long enough to understand where the other person's coming from so that you can have a shared, understood conversation.